Good afternoon and happy Thursday. I'm Diana Kennedy, and you're here once again with us as part of our iHomeschool network, iHomeschool Hangouts. You can find us here each and every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, Mountain Time at noon, and 11 a.m. for the folks over on the Pacific Coast. You can follow us on Google+. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. And our newest venture, you can also find us on iTunes and on Stitcher for the Android users. You'll find us here each and every week with a panel of homeschool bloggers discussing homeschool topics as well as family management topics as well. Today, we're going to be talking about how we get dads involved in homeschooling. I know that our panel guests have been super excited to discuss this topic, and we're looking forward to a fun afternoon with you guys. I'm going to go through real quick and let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll kick it off and get started. You'll notice some new people on the panel with us today, so I want to encourage you to make sure that you're circling everybody over on Google+ also. Carlie, if you'll introduce yourself to everybody. That's it.
Oh boy. Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Carlie Kercheval. I'm a happily married, work-at-home homeschooling mom. I'm blessed to have married my college sweetheart, Michael, and we are traveling the world as a military homeschooling family. I'm the founder of So You Call Yourself a Homeschooler, Today's Frugal Mom, and Managing Your Blessings. And my husband and I also have a podcast together. We have a podcast called Learning to Speak Life, and we also run a ministry called Learning to Speak Life where we write Bible studies for families and other things. I'm really excited to be here, and I look forward to sharing with you guys.
Excellent. We're thrilled to have Carlie here on the Hangout with us today. Listening to her kind of makes me tired because I'm thinking, my gosh, when does this woman sleep? Not this season, but maybe perhaps in the fall. So kind of keep your eyes peeled for that if you would. Next up, I have Devin Dabney. Devin, if you'll introduce yourself to us, please.
Devin Dabney. I'm a husband and father. We're actually parents of 5, soon to be 6 children, and I blog at devindabney.com. And I'm also a podcaster. I host the Connected Homeschooling podcast at connectedhomeschooling.com. So I'm really active in social media and educational technology, and so I share about that in the Connected Homeschooling community.
Excellent. If you listen to Devin's podcast, I believe he's had a couple of IHM bloggers appear as guests over there with him, so make sure that you check him out. So you got 2 podcasts, one from Carlie, one from Devin. I also want to throw a big shout out to our friend Kendra Fletcher, who's also has a podcast that you can listen to called Homeschooling in Real Life. You need to check that out. I know her last episode was about homeschooling boys, so I need to get over there and listen to that one. Kirsten?
Hi, I'm Kirsten Torrado, and I write at kirstenjoyawake.com, and I write about home education and helping women into their life purpose. It's something that I'm very passionate about. My husband and I were college sweethearts, and we've been married for 13 years and have 2 boys, ages 9 and 7. So I'm really excited to be here today and about today's topic.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. Marlene?
Hey guys, I'm Marlene Griffith. I blog over at adiligent.heart.com about faith, family, marriage, kids, life, homeschooling, just a little bit of everything, and I'm excited to be here, and I'll be pulling in the comments today.
Marlene's my production manager and helps to keep things running smoothly behind the scenes. There's a lot that you don't see that goes on kind of in the background with the Google Hangouts. Once again, I'm Diana Kennedy, and you can find me when I'm not representing the iHomeschool network. I blog over at thekennedyadventures.com, where I share resources for Catholic homeschooling, managing a large family. I'm the soon-to-be mother of 6, and my misadventures in homeschooling. So you can find me over there. All right, so today's topic that we're going to tackle is getting dads involved in homeschooling. And I have to tell you just a real quick funny story that our homeschooling journey actually started because of my husband. When we were dating, he mentioned homeschooling to me, and I immediately blew him off and told him that only crazy granola nut jobs homeschooled their children. So here I am, how many years later? 7 years later, 7 or 8 years later, eating my words. So it's been a journey for us. We have littles at home. Have a second grader and twin boys that are in kind of a preschool kindergarten mix. So that's what we've got going on at home. And then I also work outside the home. So my husband's a huge help to me, and we'll talk about kind of how he gets involved. So, well, let's talk about dads in your homeschool. Kind of talk about, what kind of things does he tackle? Let's start off here. Let me do this. Let's start off with, has Dad always been involved, or did he get involved a little bit later on kind of in the process? Anybody want to tackle that one first off?
Sure, I guess I'll do it. My husband's always been involved, kind of like you. He had mentioned homeschooling when we were in college, and I thought he was crazy. But now it's been nice. He's been involved when he's home, and he's been involved on deployments, and just any way he can get his hands in there to help teach the children, he does. He's really, really like the fun dad, he's the guy that plays with the kids and acts crazy, and I'm a little more of the serious, let's get this job done person. So it's a really good mix too. But yes, he's always been involved, and our oldest is in 8th grade now, so we've been doing it for a little bit.
Carlie and I sound like we're cut out of the same cloth. I think if you looked after my husband, we would definitely be unschoolers. We would just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, whereas I am much more of a lesson maker, check marker, that kind of, like, I'm always consumed with, okay, we got to get all this stuff done before the end of the year. Those of you all have listened to the podcast or the Hangouts or podcast before know that this year has been very challenging for us with a pregnancy, because I've been fine, nothing's wrong. It's just that it just totally wiped me out. So I took a big chunk at the beginning of the year off. So I feel like I'm kind of playing catch up now. He's more like your husband. He's more relaxed about it, and like it'll get done. But me, I'm like, deadline. Gotta get this. I want to get this out of my hair. That kind of thing. Yeah. All right, Kirsten, what about you or Devin? You guys have something to kind of how did things start with you guys?
I know I tend to be a little bit more type A in the sense of I have a plan and I'm sticking to it. And my husband, he's always been really supportive. I think if anything, he just works about like me taking care of myself in the process, and is always really conscious about, do you need to go to the store? Like, do you need to escape the house for an hour? Do you need to like do something just to feel like a person again? He's always really conscious and aware of the demands that having your children with you 24/7 can put on a mother. And so he's always very supportive in the sense of wanting to make sure that I have what I need to do my job well. But he's always been very supportive. It was more my idea from the beginning. Originally, we had our children in private school, and just with the cost of private school, and we were going through some transitions and getting ready to move, and just financially, I said, well, why don't we try homeschooling? And we actually started out with cyber schooling, and he was a huge support, in the process as we've grown through the process, and has listened to me for countless hours as my, philosophy has emerged in the process too. So, yeah.
I am so glad that you brought that up about self-care, because I actually had thought about that last night and put it down in my notes. So I wanted to make sure that we mentioned it. I want to just throw out and remind people that please don't compare your family and your homeschool and your husband's role to everybody else, you know, it's gonna be what works for you. We'll talk about later kind of how you can not drag him along, but bring him in a little bit more in a nice way. But you also need to think about things like what Kirsten said, you know, encouraging you as a mother to make sure that you're getting self-care. That's a gigantic help for homeschooler. That's gonna help your burnout. That's gonna help your attitude. If you're taking care of yourself first, you're gonna be a heck of a lot better mother and teacher and wife, as opposed to having, you know, your tank run completely and totally dry. So please give him props, you know, where it is due. So good job, Kirsten.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Devin?
Well, I agree with what you said. Definitely give us props. But I come from a family of educators and school teachers, and so that's really all that I know. And so as our kids they're still young, our oldest is only 8 years old, but we have a lot of them, and so it's important to make as many learning experiences as possible. And being that I work full-time, and my role, I think, is to be supportive, and when there are field trips or co-op opportunities for me to be there, then that's really where I get involved. I think that's really a good starting point for dads. And if you can do things like reading to the kids, then it makes a difference. Even before I came to work this morning, I read a book to the kids, and it really helps out, helps mom out. And I think the self-care is important as well, just like you guys mentioned with having that assistance or just making sure you're capable of doing it. My wife has gone through lots of pregnancies, and so there are times where she's up and down in terms of energy, and so it's important for me to kind of gauge and see where I can get in and help out.
Part of what I love about the Hangouts is listening to other folks and learning from them on my panel, and then also over in the event room. Devin's family sounds like it's set up a lot like ours, with lots of littles in the house, and yeah, that really does kind of sap your energy as a mom. Great ideas, guys. I love this. Well, let's kind of run with that because Devin mentioned something that was near and dear to my heart. Reading. Let's just talk about the different ways that dads can get involved and do get involved. I know that in our homeschool, Brett is a lot like Devin. He will do a lot of reading with the kids. He's kind of taken over story time and library trips and that sort of thing. I farm out field trips to him quite a bit too. Since he's much more laid back than I am, he is much better equipped mentally to wrangle 4 small ones at the theater than I am. Occasionally we'll go together, but it depends on my work schedule and kind of what's going on. But yeah, let's talk about, I'm going to go back and start off with Carlie again. Just tell folks on the panel and then folks in the event room, like, does your husband take a role in certain subjects, certain areas? Kind of like what kind of role does he play?
It really depends, because in the last 8 years he was gone 5 of them. So he would take on any role that he could. So for instance, you're talking about reading. He would always make a DVD of, you know, reading the children's favorite stories at the time before he would deploy. And, you know, we do things like Skype when he's gone, and on the phone he would read things to the children. And he's still the spiritual leader of our home when he's gone. So he would also, you know, make different personalized DVDs to each child, praying, you know, reading scriptures to them, teaching them to their age and to their gender. You know, the boys, our 2 youngest are boys, you know, how to be men and how to help mama when he's gone. And then, you know, our daughter, just loving on her and letting her know that she's the #1 princess in his life, you know, this kind of a thing. And now, though, that he's home and his current assignment, he should be home for about 3 years for sure. It's been awesome. He's been doing kind of like what Devin was talking about when he's home. He's able to do field trips. He, you know, reads a lot to them. He does like a lot of the physical play fighting stuff. I'm kind of, with my type A personality, I take everything kind of seriously. So when you play fight with me, it's never a play fighting. So Daddy has to do that part to make sure everything stays good. and just any way, science, you know, he really loves to do the hands-on experiments on the weekends. And just anything that he can do to help, he does it. He kind of figures out where he can plug in and just grooves with us. And I really appreciate that about him.
Awesome. I'm loving hearing all these tips. Marlene, I'm glancing kind of over the event page out of the corner of my eye. I see a couple of great ideas. One from Eva, that if you'll bring that one in, and then after that we'll talk about Amy Wishman's. Do you see those?
I do. Okay. Can you see my face behind that?
I can.
Okay, awesome.
A little bit of technical difficulty.
So Eva says, one thing that works for us is that Dad checks in with the kids in the evening to see that they got all their work done and responsibilities complete. He will then discuss strategies to improve. Demetria says, field trips are mainly my husband's domain too. Weekends with Dad are fun. Looks like those are the ones that we got so far.
I love those ideas. I'm going to put up one for Amy Wishman too that I see. Let me see. Let me see if it works over here for me. Oh, look, see. It's okay. It's okay on mine. Amy mentions that she gets resentful that she asks her husband to help out with her homeschool. The kids are keeping up with the house, and she loses sight that he does anything that she asks without complaining. I feel blessed to have a faithful friend and helper on this journey, and that's one thing that I wanted to mention too, because I was thinking about this a lot last night, because it's super easy to look at people like Carlie, whose husband is deployed and still manages to get his toes in the homeschool, and Devin, he's working full time. My husband works full time from home. You know, is very involved. So I just want to remind people, like I said, you need to give credit. You have to give credit to them where credit's due. Perhaps they're not hands-on involved in your homeschool, but maybe they're working long hours so that you have the luxury to be able to stay home and teach your kids. So just kind of take a look at it, just from an overall perspective. All right, Kirsten, let's see. Tell me what your husband does with your all's homeschool.
Sure. Well, I'd say, I think when we first started, I think that he really was fully supportive of me, but maybe neither one of us really understood how it was going to change the dynamic of our home environment and what it was going to require of him. I think that in the beginning he kind of thought, well, this is your thing, and if you want to do it, I fully support you in it. But what it did is it added like a mountain to my plate. And that meant that there were other things that didn't fit anymore. I mean, there was laundry that got left behind. There were dinners that didn't get cooked. There were lots of things in the process that got missed because I was researching a curriculum, you know, or so worn out from teaching the kids all day or writing a blog post or whatever it was that I was doing. And he never complained about it. I can honestly say he never complained about it. And I saw him pick up the pieces that I left behind without even asking, and he has cooked a lot of dinners, has done a lot of laundry, has kind of rescued me at the end of a really hard day. He jumps in with so many practical pieces of our home life. Even though he might not be teaching the curriculum, there are so many other pieces to our home life that he takes care of that I don't have to worry about if something drops. He's there to catch it or there to make it happen. And I think he kind of sees that as his role, you know, just make stuff happen. And with sports especially, I know even with like soccer, when the boys are playing soccer or whatever other sport they might be involved in, on Saturdays he handles that a lot and even coached their team last year. So he's always been really involved in their sports. And Family activities, field trips we like to do together just because it's fun and it's a memory, and it's like something that we can create those memories together just to get out and do it together. But he hardly ever leaves the house without a kid with him. You know, if he goes somewhere, I'm like, take one. And he usually has got, you know, even if it's a trip to the grocery store, you know, it's time that one of the boys has with him one-on-one. So it's a huge support in all the pieces that he picks up along the way.
I think most of us will agree that I think we all do that, especially if you've got more than one child. I know that we try to make a conscious effort between the two of us, Brett and myself, to spend time one-on-one with the kids, which is incredibly hard when you have lots and lots and lots, because you're like, okay, so like when do I get time by myself? So we do a lot like you do too. If somebody's going to the store, if I'm going to the doctor, which isn't that fun, but hey, the kids know it's, you know, dedicated time with mom or with dad. We usually stop and get a snack somewhere along the way, you know. So it's that's an easy way to just kind of build in one-on-one time too. And let me talk a little bit about we kind of covered seasons where Dad took a larger role. Kirsten, I think did you mention that about? Yes. Devin mentioned that he took over a little bit more when his wife was pregnant, and you mentioned that your husband has done more for you during research and that kind of thing. So I think it's pretty normal for Dad to take a bigger role during certain seasons of life. It's going to kind of ebb and flow. Obviously, with like Carlie, if her husband's gone, then no, the bigger role is going to fall to her because she's the parent that's there, obviously. So just kind of remember that with everything, and I know that's a big thing around our house. The workload with household items as well as with school stuff kind of goes back and forth depending on what's going on with either one of us. Marlene, did you have somebody to bring in on the comment tracker, or are you just testing?
Yeah, I'm just testing it.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right. Well, let's talk about this is going to be obvious, but we'll talk about this a little bit. Teaching styles. It sounds like me and Carlie and Kirsten are all type A people, and I bet Devin's real laid back. So talk about like how does Dad's teaching style differ from yours, and especially for those who are control freak type A people, how do we deal with that without being ugly and running the poor dads off into another room, never to come back again? Who wants to tackle that one?
Sure, I'll do it. You know, over the years, I've become better. At first, I was, you know, not very kind about some of his teaching style, you know, just the way he was so laid back, and I felt like I needed to teach him how to teach them. But over time, God has dealt with my heart, and I just let it flow. And actually, he's a phenomenal teacher. I don't know what I was ever worried about. I don't know why I would try to make him be me, because I didn't marry myself. I married Michael. So it's been really good for us. It's worked out nicely. And I think the one thing that I've learned from him is just he never gives up. My husband is a fighter in every sense of the word, and he never gives up. And I was the type that if something got too tough sometimes, I'd rather walk away, you know, from the situation and just not handle it, whereas he would just, and I watched him with the children, you know, dealing with things and conflicts in different ways that I didn't know how to do. And I've learned a lot over the last 15 years of our marriage period. But yeah, so I definitely understand where you're coming from, Diana. It's not always easy.
That's I'm so glad. I always tell people that God is softening me by giving me all these children because it's a little bit more difficult to be uptight and crazy. You know, I don't have time for all that much anymore. Devin, I'm going to hear from you about how your teaching style differs from your wife's.
I am pretty laid back, and I just think that my wife is more structured when it comes to the school work. So I just try to get in and help where I can. I know that I'm a tech geek, and I like to use technology whenever I can. And I think over time I've kind of won her over to more of using the technology, and now we have even the boys that are 2 and 4 are using different things, MobiMax or different programs on a computer or on a tablet, and then the girls are using some. And so we have the whole family really involved with technology, and I think I've kind of won my wife over on that because at one point she was not as into using the tech as much, even though she was tech savvy and had the know-how on lots of it. She's more of a pen and paper type of lady, and I'm always the digital person. Even if you look at something like a Bible, I'll pull out an iPhone and look at it on there. She likes the hard physical Bible. So I think that differs with us, but we recognize that, especially with them being young, that they can just kind of take it easy right now, and they're picking up things, and they're, like I mentioned to someone not long ago, that there are many opportunities for learning, and it may be when you're in the grocery store, and as a dad, if you're there with a couple of kids and you see different things, you can point out things to them, such as counting and doing math and doing science right there in the store, so you can make almost anything a learning opportunity, and that really counts as homeschooling. So I think we're on the same page as that, and my wife and I have this saying, we always say together is better, and it sounds like what everyone is saying on the panel. It really is a team effort, and even though you may not do it the same way, you still can work together and produce the results and teach the kids.
I get tickled. I was listening to you talk about having learning opportunities everywhere. My husband is a big YouTube user with my children, and I know he's watching. But I laugh. He'll send my Facebook posts about how I'm so glad that my husband's teaching music appreciation, because my kids learn about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and I don't know who else. Everybody under the sun, music-wise, watching YouTube with Daddy. It may not be in my lesson plan, but it's a whole lot of fun for me to watch them together, learning and enjoying each other. They pull up documentaries, they watch Top Gear to learn about cars. I mean, they're always doing something together. And like I said, it may not be what I want to do, but it's time for them to be together and learn and appreciate each other and grow. So I love that idea. Kirsten, what about you?
I love how my husband's really like more of the tech person too, like when it comes to iPhone apps and computer games and all that kind of stuff. He's really good at finding really cool websites that the boys can learn from. And of course, he's a high school teacher, so he's always, finding resources that he can pull into whatever they happen to be studying, or say, hey, did you know about this website, or did you know about this resource? And he's kind of the facts guy. Usually if the boys have questions about how something works or why it works that way, he is really good about having an intelligent answer. I, on the other hand, not so much. I'm like, I don't know. You'll have to ask your father. He'll know. And it's just this, like, I know that he knows this stuff because he just knows so many like random facts about how things work. He's just that kind of guy. And we definitely have differences in our teaching style. I tend to be, I love reading. I love books. I love stories. And he really is really good at some of the things that Devin was talking about, like those real life moments of learning, like when you're out at the store, or when your kids want to know about something more, you're really good about taking those moments to help them learn, and he does that a lot. So
I think overall in our family, my husband's just much more patient than me. Like if I'm in the grocery store, I'm in at, I don't want to talk about counting fruit or trying to figure out the cost per ounce on things and explain that to my kids. Whereas Brett would be like, oh, sure, let's talk about, blah, 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 and tell him how these, bananas came from Mexico and how long would it take to get there? And is that very efficient? And da-da-da-da-da-da. All these things that I would never even think about because I'm just so, I'm kind of tunnel visioned about that. Marlene, I see lots of comments coming through on the comment tracker. Did you want to bring some of those in?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few. Let's see, this first one we have says, it's from Diane Paisley, and it says, my husband is taking the task of writing the high school transcripts seriously. He is now getting involved in helping me choose the curriculum. It's becoming a bigger deal for him to see that each child's educational needs are addressed by the most appropriate material. Kudos to G. Paisley. He also handles the overall budget and expenditures on education, like field trips, a big deal at her house because those involve planes associated with his work. That's kind of cool. We also have something here from Sade, or from Sade. Sade. My husband's biggest contribution to our homeschool has been sharing his career with the children. He works in IT, so he has introduced them to programming, blogging, web design, graphic design, all sorts of gadgets. Basically, all of the nerdy stuff. He encourages them to consider starting a business like himself. That's so cool. A comment here from Angela. She says, I say, embrace the teaching style differences between mom and dad. Sometimes it can be exactly what your children need to move ahead on a topic they may be stuck on. Dimitri said something along those lines in response to Devin. She says, moms and dads can work together even when our teaching styles are different. And Brett Kennedy says, arts and humanities is one of my favorite subjects.
I guess I want to jump in on this part because one of the ways that I always learn is through listening to podcasts. And so sometimes, even though I'm not really able to be there physically, I can learn about resources during the day or as I'm doing different activities. And I can learn about things that maybe a website or a resource that I can share with my wife. And so that's been very helpful to us. We've found out about a lot of free resources, and even through listening to other people's podcasts. Even like some of the people on here that were mentioned, Demetria has the Christian Homeschool Moms podcast, and then Diana was mentioning about Kendra Fletcher, and there's a lot of different resources that are out there.
It's a glitchy day.
You can see me.
Okay, it says we're back now. Yes, we're live.
Somebody bring me back up to speed and tell me where I was, because I've totally lost myself now.
We were just talking about why it's good to have dad involved in homeschool.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Who's hopping right in there? What about, I say, Devin, you want to handle?
Sure. I think it's important for dads in general to show unity with mom, and it's one way to do it with homeschooling. If the kids see that you value their education and mom values their education, then it's a good sign to them. And you demonstrate the different character traits, you demonstrate different lessons when you're doing the homeschooling. And so it kind of serves as an example to them that you are on the same page. If you discipline the same way, you don't necessarily have to teach the same way, but your whole goal is to educate them and to teach them different lessons. The method may be different, but that's one of the benefits of being a united family. And I just like what was said earlier about even the dad who may be away or may be deployed. If he has the foresight to record videos and do different things like that, that says that, hey, I value this and I want to support mom and show her that this is important. So so hats off to him especially. But I think we as dads, when we take action like that, it just says, hey, I'm supporting mom, I'm supporting you, and we're a team, we do this together.
Excellent. I think that's a great point to bring in, and also I think it tells kids that you know, you don't have to be a martyr and do everything by yourself. One of our big mantras around here is, you know, I'm trying to teach my kids how to do chores, which is not going that well. That, you know, we're all in this together. You know, we all need to learn how to work. That's a life lesson to learn for kids, that, you know, it's not, and unfortunately, the world does not revolve around you. And, you know, we've got to bring everybody kind of together on the same page. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out with our tech issues. I'm so sorry. This has not ever happened to me before, so I was a little bit discombobulated. All right. Did we handle choosing a curriculum, and if dads get involved in that? Because I can't remember since I got cut off. Did we go over that at all?
Actually, we haven't yet. That was going to be the next one we were going to tackle.
Okay. Carlie, what about you guys? I don't remember what kind of curriculum you all use. But was your husband involved in choosing it or having kind of input?
Yeah, we're very eclectic. We don't stick to many things too long. But yeah, he's always involved. At first, it was just more of a numbers game for him. He wanted to know what's the bottom line, how much is this going to cost, and now it's, you know, gotten to the point where he's reads up all the time about it. And I mean, cost is still, of course, a factor, but we both are just very involved in seeking out Christian-based curriculum or things. It doesn't have to be Christian, but that's, you know, it is for our younger children that's important to us. And yeah, we just actually picked out everything for next year a couple weeks ago together, so we're set for next year already.
Excellent. Devin, what about you or Kirsten?
I think while you were away, I was just talking about always being on the lookout for resources. And one of the ways that I learn about nearly everything, whether it's business or homeschooling, is through listening to podcasts. And so when I find people who have great resources and who are in the know, and I tune in and just listen throughout the day, or sometimes in the evening, or from washing dishes, or whatever it is. I tune into a podcast and try to learn something that I could use to benefit the family. And actually on my podcast, one of the guests that I had was Lee Giles, who created the Easy Peasy All-in-One Homeschool. And just in my search for a guest on the show, I ran across her site, and there was just such a community there, and I realized, hey, here's a free homeschooling curriculum that we can use with our kids. And so we've been able to use some of the lessons there, and I learned about that resource and was able to make a connection with her, and I've discovered other people in the same manner. And so I'm able to just bring those things in and present it as an idea or a suggestion to my wife. And through some of the interviews I've done on my podcast, or through listening to other resources, then I discover things that we can use, and just pass it on to my wife, and we discuss it and try to implement it.
Awesome. That's a great way to look at those things. Kirsten, what about you?
I think when it comes to choosing curriculum, I do most of the research, but then my husband Lewis is like my main sounding board. And usually I'll take all of my options to him and say, well, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And he will take a look at, you know, all the options that I'm researching and give me a real response as far as, well, I think this would work, and maybe this might not work about that curriculum. You know, his feedback really helps me because he sees things from a different angle that I might not see it from. Or he'll say, well, this looks like it might be for older students. You might want to wait until, later on. This one might be easier for you to use now. Because sometimes I can get a little overambitious. So I think that, his feedback really helps me in making choices. I always joke, I say I'm going to get them through elementary school, and then when they get to middle school, they're yours, But we have a lot of fun with looking at curriculum and choosing things. I do most of the research, though, but his feedback definitely helps me make a final decision on what to implement.
It sounds like that you do it a little bit kind of like we do too. We use a classical curriculum, but the more years that I homeschool, I do a lot of picking and choosing with that. Like, and Brett's good about looking at things and going, do you really think cursive is that important? And halfway through the year, then we end up ditching it because it's really not, or what have you. We're planning on going to a big. He likes to look at things a little bit more than I do, just because I know that I am distracted by the shiny. I have to just kind of keep tunnel vision. Otherwise, I know that I will want to try everything that's the latest and greatest thing. And, oh, sure, this is going to be fabulous for us. Because we're going to be going to the Great Homeschool Convention in Cincinnati in April. So I'm going to have to keep him reined in. Because he had a tendency to look things a little bit later on down the road. Like, oh, this looks great for algebra. I'm like, I'm not even anywhere close to that. So I'm just focused. He focuses a little bit more long range than I do, whereas, I'm kind of like here and now. But we do at least look through things together and kind of make decisions based that way.
Right, and I think he always is very conscious about making sure that I have enough in our budget to cover whatever my vision is, for the children, for their education that year. I come to him and say, I want to spend this much, for this stuff. And then he's usually very conscious about, always wanting to make sure that there's enough there so that, if I see resources later on and want to pick them up and throw them in, that we can do that. When you're living on one income, we have to budget our resources for homeschooling. So that's a big part of our conversation with curriculum too, is also the finances of it and making that decision together.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that I actually did not have in my notes, but it's wonderful. That's a wonderful point to remind people that just because he's not looking and picking out the actual books doesn't mean that he's involved. Doesn't mean that he's not involved. All right, Marlene, do we have any comments to bring in from the event page before we wrap everything up?
So going here from Demetria, she's saying to Kirsten, she's like, our family is similar in that I do the main research and my husband gives me valuable input. Sometimes I get a green light and sometimes a total may not work. I definitely need his advice and guidance. Renee Brown, she says, my husband is a great provider and works hard to make sure we have what we need for our homeschool. But the day in and out of homeschool, he leaves it up to me. Anyone else have a hands-off homeschool dad? My husband is very good about teaching my son life skills. I just mean book learning homeschool.
I think it's important to remember that, hands-on is just kind of, I guess, in the eye of the beholder. What I mean by that is I don't think that you have to necessarily have a dad that is involved in, quote, book learning. If he's teaching them life skills, I think that's great. However he's going to be involved, whether it's showing them how to change oil in a car or teaching the kids how to drive or how to kick a soccer ball. I mean, you have to, like we said before, you got to give credit where credit's due. Some men may not feel comfortable or confident enough to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to teach, this kid how to read or work on math skills with this kid. So like I said, that was my big thing was, please don't compare yourself and your family to other folks. It's all about what works for you. Do we have anything else, Marlene?
No, we're good actually. Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap this up today before we get Shanghai with any other technical issues. I thank you all so very much for staying with us and for being so patient with some glitches, and hopefully we'll be able to avoid those in February, because they kind of put me off. They put me off track and get me all turned upside down. We've got some great things going on with iHomeschool Network in February. We've got homeschool burnout we're going to tackle. I'm also going to talk about teaching art in your homeschool. And there's another topic that escapes me at the moment, but we're also going to be having our iHomeschool Studio, which is an online webinar that you'll be able to attend. So you need to check that out. We'll try to put a link over there in the event page. But I want to thank my guests so very much, Carlie Kercheval, Devin Dabney, Kirsten Torrado, and my production manager, Marlene Griffith. Thank you all so much for hanging out in the event room and spending time with us today. Once again, if you will circle these people on Google+, go check out their blogs and websites and podcasts. Speaking of podcasts, go subscribe to us in iTunes and or in Stitcher, and make sure that you're following us on YouTube. That way you will be up to date on all of the latest Hangouts and podcasts that we're releasing. Every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 Mountain Time, and 11 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. You can join us live, or you can follow us whenever your schedule permits. Thank you so much, and have a great Thursday afternoon. Bye-bye.